on BBC Local Radio in Shropshire, North Staffordshire, South Cheshire and the West Midlands. We present Mike Adams and Chris Savory, the Record Collectors, from now until 9 tonight.
With you in the Midlands, BBC Radio.
Our special guest tonight on the Record Collectors is none other than the man from Sheffield, the former gas fitter, Joe Cocker. And Joe Cocker has a new album. It's called No Ordinary World, and heading in a new direction of a studio album. For example, the live feel from the organic record produced by Don Was. I can ask you, Joe, did you feel it was time for this sort of project?
Well, you know, I did have Across from Midnight, the last album, which was more of a studio album. But I think we've extended this time, I mean, working with Steve Powers, for one thing, and Pete Vitesi. Well, we're both, I mean, you know, it was kind of a new experience for me to work, especially with Steve, who puts together albums in a different way than I'm used to.
Yeah.
I've always been so used to laying the tracks down with, you know, the initial track and then building on the track. Whereas Steve has a different approach. You know, we worked out the keys, we worked the songs up with a rough band, and then he works with musicians individually and sort of layers the tracks, you know.
Yes, he does.
So I was sat in London for about a month as Pete was doing these tracks. So it was a bit of a nail-biting time. I didn't know how we were going to come out, you know. But gradually the tracks started coming to life, you know.
There's a cover of First We Take Manhattan. Now, was that a Leonard Cohen song? Did you know the original, or were you inspired by Jennifer Warren's version?
Right, well, you can tell that Jennifer's definitely inspired us, you know, the pace of the thing. But it was odd, that, because I went out and got another copy of Leonard's, which, you know, is very kind of dirgy, you know, if you listen to the original. And I just, when Roger Davis sort of suggested, you know, that this might be ready for reviving, you know, this song, because I've always liked it. And but I didn't realise the depth of the lyric till I'd sort of sung it, and because I just thought it was a good rocker, you know. And then I sat with the producer and we started realising what a heavy statement it is on the fashion industry. That
particular track, Joe, is a particularly heavy statement on the fashion industry. But to me, this new album, incidentally, you've just joined us on the Record Collectors. Our guest is Joe Cocker, and we're looking at his new album, No Ordinary World. Can I just say, Joe, this collection of songs contains some of the best lyrics I think you've ever delivered. It's got a lot of lyrical content as well as a melody. Is this still very important to you?
I kind of wanted to stray off just doing kind of... I mean, I always do return to doing the blues, and I always will. But it felt nice to do a little, just stretch out a little, even though it might be a bit pop in some areas. But I thought it worked out well.
Well, it certainly did work out well. Different Roads has a superb production and a clever use of backing tracks. Did you have any production input into the song, Joe?
To be honest, because it was Steve Davis. I've done a lot of Steve Davis songs over the years.
Oh, yes.
He's a fantastic writer. And he's just started co-writing with different people, so I think that's why his songs, especially that one, just sort of got a different lift. But I didn't, Steve found the backing vocalists in London for this one. What I did like is that I believe it's called the London Symphony Orchestra these days, a lot of young musicians who played live on the sessions. I mean, well, they played live to the tape. But as I say, it was Steve's idea to give, to try a different approach than we have done for the last couple of records.
One of the tracks, Joe, which we at the Collectors liked, was My Father's Son. This was a hit for, I'm trying to remember, was it Connor Reeves? Can I ask you, what attracted you to this song? Was it the sheer power of the lyric?
It's a powerful little tune.
Yeah.
I didn't know if I could quite do it because the range, if you notice, I sing it quite softly to start with. Because it's got a very steep range. And living in the States or whatever, I wasn't even aware that it had been such a hit, for Connor Reeves. I kind of thought it was maybe a top 40 song, but on the outskirts. But I guess it was quite a big hit right in Europe.
Oh, yes, it was a very big hit in Europe, you're quite right. Let's just move on a little bit, Joe. There's a track which is a Stevie Winwood classic called While You See a Chance. Now, it struck me, listening to the album, why did you cover it?
A guy suggested to me yesterday, he said, Joe, you don't usually record such big hits or cover such big hits. And I didn't think, I didn't kind of sink into me that, usually when I do a song like First We Take Manhattan, I don't really think about how big a hit the original was unless, as far as being an influence on whether to do it or not. But, it seemed like it was ready to me to give it another shot, that song, although the original was very good.
Just to tell our audience that our guest tonight on The Record Collectors is Joe Cocker, and we're talking about Joe's brand new album, which is out now, called No Ordinary World, and it's on the Parlophone label. There's another track called She Believes in Me. And just to tell you, Joe, that it seems a possible reflection of your life. I mean, you started life in Sheffield as a gas fitter, I think I'm right in saying that, and so life's moved on to some of the greatest albums, certainly the greatest albums in the last sort of 20 years, and your huge success in America. But on this one, it's co-written by a great favourite here in England, Bryan Adams. Was he involved in the session?
No, but he did put a bridge in for us, because when he first, he was in LA while I was in LA. I don't know why we didn't get together. I think he had to zoom off somewhere. But he wrote the bridge, which, because originally I didn't think there was enough to it, But, I think you'd probably like that line, gone slightly off the rails, right? which is what is a kind of cute line of the song, I think.
If you're just joined us, you're with Mike Adams and Chris Savory. We're your record collectors. Our guest is Joe Cocker. No Ordinary World is the brand new album that Joe's got out. It would seem to me that you've achieved so much, but is there anything left that you feel you really, really would like to add to your career, Joe?
Yeah, I don't know. Because... people always ask me the duets and who would you like to sing with, and like Aretha and stuff hasn't come together. But no, there's no kind of gaping, God, I've still got to do that, I just get back on the road and climb back into I think when I get to be 60, I might actually stop and think, where's it all going to,
Yeah, but
say, how long do you want to keep going? And it's like, I'm all those, the 4-0 was a big one, the 5-0 was cruel, but I just, I don't know what my mental state will be on the 6-0,
We'll have to ask some of the boys in the studio, Joe. Why record half the album in Los Angeles and then the other half here in England, in London?
Well, I started getting a bit frustrated just sort of hanging around,
Yeah.
And I kind of made a deal with Steve Power when I said, Steve, would you mind coming to LA? Because I've done the last 3 or 4 albums, maybe 5 albums in LA, and I've always felt a lot more comfortable doing vocals here for some reason.
Well, very pleased that you are here, but if we go on to another track, which is No Ordinary World, the title track, tell me about the song.
Again, it's one of Steve Davis's songs.
Really?
That I think he wrote with a Swedish guy, which is, like a little unusual for his writing pattern. And I just kind of thought it was, it's a kind of a light, I like the spirit of it.
Your support in Europe, Joe, has been particularly strong in certain countries. I just like, and I'm sure that we on the Record Collectors, here from your favourite local BBC radio station, would like to know how it affects your work.
I still, when I make a record, I kind of think of, the German and French bass,
Yeah.
So they've nurtured me all these years. So, it would be nice to see, have some success with an album in England anyway.
Well, let's hope you do have a success with this album. It certainly deserves it, Joe. And if you've just joined us, you're tuned to the Record Collectors with Mike Adams and Chris Savory. Our special guest tonight is Joe Cocker, who's given us this interview, No Ordinary World, which is an absolutely brand new album, which is out now. Now, I just want to sort of put to you, Joe, if I may, is that your tours have taken place in, just about everywhere. and it's particularly nice to go to new areas and discover you have a new audience there. How do you feel about that?
It is. I mean, there's still, you can tell, even though the changes are coming in. I mean, I do like the enthusiasm. Like
Yes.
in Poland, we played at one of Stalin's old theatres last time.
Really?
Where he'd obviously done some speeches. And I remember I wasn't feeling that great that night, but the audience kind of just rose me up. I mean, they just came, they were just so enthusiastic. It kind of, I forgot all about feeling rough and just, I mean, and it's good to know that they're getting some real music at last, and just, I mean, they might be 20 years behind us in some respects, but it's, eventually I believe that, the whole of Europe will unite. It might take, 50 years, but hey.
Well, here on BBC Record Collectors, we'll be playing a track or two from the album tonight, Joe. But there's a question I want to put to you, having lived and worked overseas myself. And now, I gather you're based in the United States, obviously, but you're based in Colorado. Do you ever miss anything about England?
I had a chance to think about it because we were doing the album.
Yes.
And we were there, Ray and I, we were sort of like just...
In London?
In the heart of London,
Yeah.
We did the fish and chip shop at the Seashell about 40 times, and we got plenty of bangers and mash and stuff. But it's one of those things now that I've made that ranch and just this surrounding area in Colorado so much. That's what I am when I'm off the road. That I just couldn't imagine uprooting again. I mean, the wife started a restaurant called the Mad Dog Cafe, and it's doing really well. I mean, in the summertime, we get a lot of bikers coming through, going because of the Black Canyon. I mean, it is remote, but it's very beautiful in the summer too. So that's been another aspect of life, because I usually used to go and just sort of switch off totally, but now it's kind of I've still got a bit of celebrity when I'm off the road too.
Well, it looks like we've lost you in England forever, really. Just the occasional visit like this. But can I just ask you, do you still see yourself as fortunate in the way that you've had the chance of making a living over the years, and also tell you that on behalf of here on BBC Midlands Record Collectors, how much pleasure you've given us over, with your music. Not such a mad dog at all. But do you think yourself fortunate?
I just lost a friend of mine, a roadie, a guy called Rod Libby, and when they mentioned his death in the paper, they said he'd done 14 world tours with me. So I must have done over 20, tours around the globe. And yes, I am. I'm kind of grateful that there's still an audience, want to hear me sing when I go out, and because I've always been able to work, put a band together with good players, and I kind of it's the gypsy in my soul. I think, like you say, I'll probably always be on the road because it's just in my blood,
Well, first we'll take Manhattan, Joe. Can I say thank you very much for being our guest on the Record Collectors? And here is First We'll Take Manhattan from Joe Cocker's brand new album here on the Record Collectors.